What's going on? So if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of sayings. Now, like most people, I don't know where most of these sayings come from, but I know that you've heard them before. So we're going to cover 3. And the third one is probably one you haven't heard, so hang on tight. The first one is the grass isn't greener on the other side. Now, I feel like most people have heard that, and most people hear it in a relationship context. You're sitting here unhappy in your relationship because you don't have certain things, and you look over the fence and you realize the other side of the fence has those things that you're looking for. You might be naive enough to think, I should go over there because their grass is greener. And it goes hand in hand with that 80-20 rule, because you're having 80% of what you need, but you're looking and fixating over the 20% that you don't have. Most people have someone in their corner that is willing to tell them, hey, the grass isn't greener on the other side. But if you're one of those people that don't have someone in your corner to tell you, you might end up on the other side of that fence with the 20% that you were missing, wishing you had the 80% that you left. So that's the first one. The grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence. Okay. And just a caveat to that, the grass is greener where you water it. So if you want your relationship to be better, you want your friendships to be better, you got to put in that effort. If you want your grades to be better in school, you have to put in that effort. The grass grows where you water it. Things are good where you make them good. The second one that we're going to cover is what you water will grow. Now this one is going towards your intentions. What you water will grow. Let's talk about it with your thoughts first. If you think about positive things nonstop, you're going to see positive things in your life. Our brain is really, really magnificent in the way of what you tell it, it will look for clues to prove you right. So if you tell it that you're successful, it's looking for things to prove each day that you're successful. If you're telling it that you're happy, it's looking for things to prove that you're happy. But the flip side of that is the negative side. If you tell your brain or you say out loud, I'm having a bad day, and the only thing you're thinking about is bad things that happen to you, your brain will look for every single thing in the world that could contribute to you having a bad day and bring it to your attention. What you water grows. So if you want positivity in your life, focus on positive things, because what you focus on will grow. Same thing in your relationships. If you want your relationship to be better, you don't achieve that by only focusing on the negative. Now, I'm not saying be fake. If there's something wrong in your relationship, talk about it. But if you spend more time talking about the negative and focusing on the negative without focusing on a solution, you're only going to see the negative, because what you water grows. The third one that we're going to cover, honestly, I don't even know if it's a saying. It's something that came to my mind and it sounded like a saying, so I called it a saying. So if you made it this far, you might be catching on to a new saying. What you ignore will grow also. What you ignore will grow also. The best illustration I can give you for this is you can ignore bad things in your life and they will still grow because they're unaddressed. But the best illustration for this is your front yard. Most people don't plant weeds in their front yard. Most people don't plant weeds in their backyard. But if you notice a weed has sprouted up in your yard and you don't do anything to stop it, whether that's pull it or getting some kind of weed killer or doing something to make sure that it can't grow any longer, that weed will grow, and it will grow and get stronger. There's some parts of the world that have a weed that's called a Virginia creeper. In the comments, let me know if I'm wrong about this. But that Virginia creeper, if it is ignored and no one does anything to stop it growing, it can grow up to 30 feet tall. The roots for that Virginia creeper can go 6 feet deep if no one does anything to interrupt this growth. Now that is really crazy because no one plants Virginia creepers. When you have things that are going wrong in your world, whether it's relationships, school, or work, if you continue to ignore it, it will continue to grow. They used to have a thing about sweeping things under the carpet, and Cliff Notes' version of that is, if you sweep it under the carpet long enough, you're gonna walk through your house and you're gonna trip. And it's saying that there's only so much you can ignore before it becomes such a big problem that you can't ignore it. And then it sounds like you're making a big deal out of nowhere. So I'm not telling you to nitpick in your relationship or pick fights at work. What I'm telling you is when you see something that is going on that is not right, address it before it becomes a Virginia creeper. Because once it gets tree size, it's so much harder to remove. I appreciate you. If you made it this long, go ahead and like, subscribe. We got more content coming soon.